Hi, everyone, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and I'm your host, BMR. And as always, I'm joined by the bearded one, Tex. If this is your first time here, please subscribe on YouTube to Tex's Front Porch. Give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to hit the alert bell. You can find us on Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio, and on Facebook at Texas Front Porch. You can also reach us by email at paracryptidencounters@gmail.com or by text at 972-559-0988. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to Bigfoot Michigan Rob. If you enjoy our content and would like to support us, the Super Chat is always open, or you can Venmo us at @text6717. Thank you and enjoy the show. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be today. I am BMR. We've got a fantastic guest waiting out back for us that we're going to bring up. And before I bring up Lady Ann and the bearded one, Tex, we're now on Rumble, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We're always in the process of redoing the beginning of our shows, and yet again, we are expanding. We have 5 shows a week. Monday, Texas Front Porch, 6:30 Central. Wednesday, Jason McLean questions everything. That's at 9 Central. Thursdays, of course, right here with BMR and Tex, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at noon. Also tonight, check out Jason McLean's new show, The Serial Papers. That's 9 Central. Fridays, the lovely and talented Jessica Jones with Remote View Investigations. That's at 8 Central as well. Don't forget the Bama Bigfoot Conference, June 10th and 11th. Myself, Tex, Jason McLean, and a host of others will be speaking there. And yes, Jessica Jones may make an appearance. And yes, southwest corner of the stage, we'll be signing autographs and giving out free selfies. That's right, free selfies. Tex, I understand it's 90 degrees there in Texas. It just hit 80 today here in Michigan. How are you dealing with that? I heard that fan going on in the background earlier.
Yeah, I had to turn it off. I think I'm going to have to replace that. I was doing pre-show stuff, doing some other stuff, and it started. I'm like, well, here we go. So, yeah, summer has arrived in Texas. We're convinced of it down here. Of course, we have 3 seasons in Texas. You know, we have summer, winter, and football. That's what we have.
Yeah.
So we are definitely in the summer.
The part of Michigan where I live in, man, it just goes straight from winter to summer. We don't get spring. Michigan claims they have 4 seasons, but we technically have 2, hot and cold. Speaking of hot and cold, we've got a great guest in the back. And you know what? We're going to go about an hour today because she's just a little under the weather. We have Selene coming up. She's the owner of KPLN Radio, host of her own podcast, The Caravan. The Caravan Library of Lore. Thank you, Rob. I just got up. Some people say she may be a vampire witch, but you know what? She's got a lot of great experiences.
So what you're saying is we have a hot, cold-blooded young woman with us.
I couldn't have said it. Thank you, Tex. That is fantastic. I got to write that down. Man, what a great start to the show. But she's got many experiences, paranormal, extraterrestrial, even perhaps a Bigfoot encounter. Lady Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. I'm sorry for stumbling through your podcast, the Caravan Library of Lore on KPNL.
No, it's okay. Whether it's my podcast name or the name of my book, it's there's always a lot of words.
Yes, and you know what? You did write a book, and why don't you tell us just a little bit about that since we got you started on that? Since I left that out of the introduction.
Rob dropped the ball once again.
Yes. But you know what?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ann.
My book is called Aperture in the Veil, Born in a Preternatural World. And it is basically everything that has happened to me since I was a child up to this point now. So shadow entities, ET, Bigfoot. I mean, you name it, it's in there.
That's
So,
awesome. You have lived an eventful life, and you know,
Yes.
and not. But I will say this: not all of it has been coincidental, or I mean, some of this you dove into headfirst on your own.
Right. Yes. No, I mean, from my very, very first memories, I mean, I remember being in my crib and seeing shadow entities down the hallway. And eventually over time, it got to the point where it was so normal. It was just like I don't remember much of life without this stuff. So now when I go into like paranormal investigations or what have you, it just feels there isn't that fear that I guess somebody would have if they've never experienced this kind of stuff. So,
and you make mention about your paranormal investigations. Do you think that at such an early age, do you think that has helped you in your investigations where you could perhaps help out families or uncover whatever mysteries that you're delving into at the time?
I do, I do. Back when I was about 15, I started going to what was called a healing group. In the healing group, we were learning Reiki, and we were, gosh, it was kind of like doing these interviews where it was like a convention of all of us together who had all these different beliefs, and we would share our knowledge, our experiences, and everything. And through that, I realized how healing that telling our stories are, especially when I first got on radio here. I did my first interview and I received messages from, I think somebody was from New Zealand, another person was from like Australia, and they were like, oh my gosh, I've had these experiences as well. So being able to have that voice and give other people a voice has been a very healing experience for sure.
Now, you talked about the healing group you were in and stuff, and you mentioned what is it, Reiki?
Yes, Reiki.
What
Yes,
can you
that's
explain?
energy
Because I
healing.
am totally ignorant on that. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, so Reiki energy healing is pretty much where you like, you have somebody on, it looked like it's a massage table, but we called it a healing table. And you can hover your hands above them, or you can place your hands on the individual, and you just kind of imagine this, I mean, there's different kinds. You can imagine this green emerald healing energy that's kind of just coming down through your crown chakra into you, or the white light of heaven, golden liquid light of God. There's a lot of different ones, and it flows through you and it goes out through your hands. And this energy is intelligent. So it will go into the person that is receiving the healing. It knows where to go, and it will just heal them.
Well, I sure hope it's more intelligent than I am because it wouldn't do them no good.
Oh.
You know, when we talk about energy and just recently myself, since I've been doing this, I've just started like reading up and talking to other people about energies and things. Something that I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have thought about healing processes through energy or helping to solve paranormal mysteries. But so energy, in a sense, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that like a true life form then? It's something we can't see, but yet it's an active life source.
I I feel so. I mean, gosh, getting into that is something that, I was really into metaphysics, quantum mechanics for a long time, and that was back when I was, a teenager, and I've kind of went away from that because it's it gets so deep, you get into that and you get into multiverse and, you know, all this kind of stuff, and so I've kind of pulled back from that and tried to just kinda cut it down into bite-sized pieces, so to speak, you know?
I like how you put that together. Thank you. Bite size.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people were cracking jokes about the cold blooded and the bite sized
Oh,
pieces and
yeah.
everything. But the lady does has fangs. I mean, come on, you got to,
Yeah.
it's low hanging fruit. We can't resist it.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
you do look lovely, by the way.
Oh,
And
thank you. Thank you.
I got to say the whole fang thing is it, it adds a whole new level to the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you
Yes.
walk up and you get somebody with as a pretty smile as you have, and they're smiling, they've got the fangs showing. It's like, oh, where's this going to go? You know?
Yeah. You've got
Well,
Texas. You know, Lady Ann. I do all the bookings for our shows that we have, and Tex always
mhm.
love when I bring a nice, pretty young lady on because he just turns to a different side. He's like a flower, and
Aw.
that's why I gotta do at least one lady per month just for Tex to show off that sweet side
Aw.
that he has.
That's very sweet of you.
Doris says, "I'm fighting sweat in my armpits and June bugs in my hair."
Oh.
that's
So
that sounds awful sexy.
yeah, yeah, it's
Oh, I'm not ready for summer.
yeah. No, well, like I said,
Doris is a great friend of ours and supports us, and she's awesome. And hey, you
Aw.
need to tell. And I'm sorry, this is something between me and Doris, but you need to tell Little Britches I said hi. I've got a I've got a huge little fan. So and I love them to death. They're great. I'm sorry, had to throw that in there.
Aw.
But
you know, and the thing
hey,
too,
Santa loves kids, man. I can't, hey, whatever.
yeah, Santa. I want to delve more into the spirit world and paranormal with you too, Anne. But here's the thing
Mhm.
too. A lot of the people that are going to listen to the show, they want to hear at least one tale of Sasquatch. And from what I understand, from what I heard, this tale
Mhm.
may or may not have been because Tex out in the field, he comes up with similar. His story in the field in Brown Springs is kind of similar to what you experienced. In fact, when you had made mention, I saw you on a show some time back, and what you said was Sasquatch kind of had me a little confused. And I know it's a tough story for you, but if you could walk us through that, I think our audience would appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Of course, of course. It started out with doing a paranormal, like ghost investigation, and we had tried doing what was called the Estes method. With the Estes method, you have a spirit box, you have noise canceling headphones, and you have a blindfold. You pick one person that puts all those on, and you turn on the spirit box and you just listen. Through the static, you hear words. And as you're listening to this, you just call out the words that you hear. Now, the other people in the group can ask questions just kind of, out loud, and the person will essentially be answering back or whatever through the spirit box, because whatever energy spirit being is there is able to use that to speak to us. Well, everything that was coming through seemed to be about the land. It was very connected to the land. And because we heard forest, we heard, trees, we heard, all this stuff. So I, of course, had the bright idea that, okay, let's do this in the woods at night.
Mhm.
And so it was a day or two later, and we went out there and we had rode in on this little, four-wheeler. We go in and we have all our equipment, and the thing is I'm sensitive, so I feel different energies and stuff. Well, here in the Pacific Northwest, the forest is pretty quiet. Well, over there in Ohio, oh my gosh, it's like an orchestra. And so I didn't really take note of that, and I probably should have, but it was just quiet. So, what do I equate quiet with? Peace. So I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Well, we set everything up, and I'm sitting down on this blanket, and over to my right, I can hear footsteps. And and it's very distinct. You know that it's bipedal. But I'm also thinking, okay, it's nighttime and maybe I'm scared, so it's got to be like a rabbit or a bird. Well, I'm sitting there a little bit longer, and then I hear this really low guttural growl. But I look at who I'm with, nobody else reacts. No one. So I'm like, okay, this is me. I'm just being afraid. So I stand up and I grab a flashlight, and now I'm facing the area that was behind me. And I have my flashlight and I'm looking. I don't really see anything until I go over to an opposite direction. And just out of the flashlight's reach, I can see the silhouette. And it was, I mean, the head and the shoulder and the arm wrapped around the tree. And I'm just staring at it and I'm like, I'm not here for you. This is this is not why I'm out here. And I always thought that if, you know, with energy, if you don't want to claim a situation, if you don't want that to be a part of your reality, well, normally it's supposed to work that way. It didn't that night. And so, boom, I take the flashlight off of the tree. And as soon as I did that and I'm looking elsewhere, we hear the loudest, like, open-handed smack on the side of the vehicle that we drove in on. Well, they laugh because when you're in a building doing a paranormal investigation, you hear sounds. That's normal. But we're out in the woods, and I hadn't told them what I saw, and I just froze. And when I had went over to look again at the tree, there was nothing there. So they look at me and they're like, are you good?" And I went to say yes, and then I'm like, no, I want to go to the field. I can't be out here, and I need to go to the field. And I was just like really shook up. So they're like, okay, all right, well, we'll go. And so we packed everything up and we get in the little vehicle and we drive out of the woods, and we're out in the field and we set the blanket up. And one of the people that I'm with decides to hold up their phone playing the 1994 Ohio Howl recording. And I'm telling you, the sound that came out of the woods, I mean, it was the exact same tone, exact same cadence, everything. And I I just stood there and I'm like, monsters really do exist. I was terrified. I really thought in my whole life I would never hear that sound. I would never see one. I would never experience anything like that. But here, this was happening. So we're all froze. We're hearing this. And that's when we hear it sounds like something rips a tree out of the ground and smacks it against another tree. And I'm in that vehicle and I'm just like, go, go, go. I can't. So they started up and we leave. And at that point I was like, well, I never discounted anybody that had experiences. I just didn't think that that was for me. And I no longer, at that point I was like, well, I never need to look. I never need to search. I went from a believer to a knower in that moment. Well, after a while, we things kind of calmed down, and I was thinking about how I've heard a lot of different things in the community where some people will think that Sasquatch, is the whole cloaking alien UFO riding thing, and then the other half think that it's just, as regular as the great panda. So I was like, well, I wonder what would happen if we use the spirit box to try to communicate with these whatever, if it was Sasquatch. So we hook everything up again. And that's when we could hear movement coming down towards us where we were sitting. And up on the ridge, there's this ridge and there's this tree, and the branches that came out and the moonlight was kind of shining behind it. The same silhouette was right there, the head, the shoulders, and I was not the only one that saw it. And it was kind of moving back and forth like this.
Real quick,
And
let me jump in real quick.
mhm,
From the time you saw the first shadow, okay,
yes.
silhouette, and the time
Mhm.
you saw the second one, how long? What was the time frame, and how far was the distance from the first to the second?
Um, well, the time frame was
Approximately.
about almost 2 hours,
Okay,
and it was in a completely different area. Totally different area. 'Cause
but
now we were back down to base camp. We were not in the woods. We weren't in the field. We had drove back to base camp.
okay,
So,
how far? But I mean, you weren't racing to get back there or anything like that. In the, I'm guessing you were in a side by side
yeah.
ATV,
Yes.
so you weren't hauling butt or nothing like that. And what do you say what do you think the distance was from where y'all were when you had the first sighting of the silhouette to this second time? Ballpark figure.
I I'm not sure. I'm terrible at distance and measurement and all of that. I'm not sure. I mean, it
Okay, let
was
me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Maybe wait, because I'm trying. I have a. There's a method to my
okay.
madness here.
Yes.
Um, how long did it take you to get from point A to point B in the side by
Oh, it was only about 3, 4 minutes.
side? Okay. Now, um, see, that makes a lot of sense because one, with howls and calls in general, we don't know what we're
Mhm.
saying to these things. Okay.
Right, that's true.
And now this is just speculation on my part, but
Mhm.
the howl that y'all played
Mhm.
didn't get what I would call a friendly response.
Right.
Um,
Agreed.
so it may have been he may have thought that may have been very well may have been an alpha that was on the recording. This may have been another alpha that was watching.
Oh,
So it
yeah,
may have
huh?
been a territorial thing. So
Right?
um, there's a lot of stuff that can play into go into play here. So um, it's because just being one of the stupid ones that made aggressive calls and beat on my chest, I understand the aggressive stuff that you get back. So,
Right.
which is not smart, by the way. People don't do that unless you're ready for something. But
Mhm.
so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just
Oh,
wanted to
no.
get because what it really sounds like is this thing followed you
Right. Yes.
because you either irritated the hell out of it or he was just curious at that point. It's probably a little bit of both. So anyway, I'm sorry I
Right.
interrupted. Go ahead with
No,
it.
no. I appreciate everything that you said. It's things that I haven't really thought about because the Bigfoot is not my realm. So, and it was interesting because we also felt like it wasn't just one. It felt like that there was more when we were in the woods, and then there was more movement around us where there was that ridge. And so being hooked up to the Estes method again, we started to receive responses from there. Again, talking about the land, but talking about how there's a disconnect. Like there's a disconnect between humans and the land. They were once worshipped, but now they're a myth, and it was sad. But something else began to come through, and this something else had actually made its presence known in the very beginning when we were doing the investigation at base camp, because as the person on the Estes method was saying what she heard, sometimes she would say it in the sing-songy voice,
Mm.
and it kind of seemed like it was going in circles, or it would just divert off into random stuff, and I could see this image in my head. Well, the only way I can describe it is if you had something that was on two legs, and it had its hands out, and it had this deer head and these antlers, and and the word trickster had come up with all of us. Well, things began to turn during the Estes method at the final point. One thing that was really interesting is we had when the thing came out by the tree on the Estes method, she said, "See, you see me." And then one of us turned on a flashlight that was over in that area, and all of a sudden she yells, "Bright, too bright," so we turn it off. Well, that sing-song voice came through again, and then it started to talk about our children. So, calling them by nicknames that we only knew, and so we cut off the session, and we were done at that point.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like what. To me, it sounds like you got a little bit of both worlds going on in
Right.
that time, and that's happened to me on several occasions. With pretty much as frightening results as you got. It happened to an entire team that we had up there. It was the most crazy night that we've ever had, and we had cryptids, we had paranormal, we had what seemed to be demonic entities, and you're talking about the whole flashlight thing. There was, in fact, one of the guys in the chat, he's one of our trackers. He's an expert tracker, and he was with us. And that's Senior in there, Gary Spike Senior. They had, I think it was 3 or 4 entities that started in the trees, or they looked like they were on all fours, but they would get up on all twos, on 2 feet, and they were approaching them, and they would go down to all fours. And every time they would hit them with a flashlight, these creatures would disappear. When they turned the flashlight on, they were right back where they were.
Wow.
It got to the point where Senior drew his pistol. It was that intimidating. So, and in the meantime, about 20 yards away, I was with a group called What the Paranormal. It's a mother and daughter team, and they are sensitive, especially the daughter, Laney. She's very sensitive. They tell me I am. I don't know. I call it a gut feeling. I have all my life. That's just, I've never pursued that. I guess, I just leave it as is and whatever. It's got me out of trouble. It's kept me out of trouble. Let's keep it that way.
Right.
But we were in a cemetery. We were in an abandoned, defunct, desecrated cemetery that originally started as an Indian burial ground. And yeah, you'd love this area. Maybe, I don't know. But
wow.
And I'd been there this is where I've been researching for the past 5 years. And up until, what was it, last year when y'all grounded me, Rob, I think it was. I was doing all this solo.
Yes, right. Of course.
Wow.
And I've got some crazy stuff out there as far as audio. I mean, it's just insane.
Oh, I'm sure.
But anyway, this particular night, when me and the girls were standing over about 20 yards away, I got what I've never had happen before is my arms got real hot. They got real heavy. I felt like I was kind of being weighted down. And at the same time, Laney got her little spidey sense going. She gets a pain in the back of her neck when something's trying to talk to her, attach herself, whatever. So when I started talking about what's going on with me, and she's, we start talking, I said, well, y'all got to talk me through this because I've never had this happen. And
right.
So, well, what it is, it's probably something trying to attach itself to you. Right. I said, okay, well, get off my back, whatever. So we're sitting there, and we've got a spirit box going, or a variation thereof, and we get 3 words. We get Solo, Beast, Grace. Now, the reason those are pertinent is because back in base camp, which was about 1.5 miles away, one of the guys had made a comment about Amy's husband being a beast. He makes me look small. He's a big dude. And at this time, he was sitting down at the cemetery sets up about 100 so yards up a hill in the woods. Okay. He was down at the bottom waiting on us in his truck. Okay. And my truck was parked beside him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we east solo. He's down there by himself.
Right.
And we get Grace. Grace is the name of my truck. I named my truck after Albert Fish's last victim, Grace Buck.
Wow.
That should tell
Wow.
you. That's just some up text for you.
So all this and all this is happening simultaneously.
Right.
We're seeing this stuff go on with the other guys,
Wow.
and we're having all this other stuff, and then my headlamp and Amy's big 9x6 adjustable freaking LED outshine the sun freaking light she had go off at the same exact time.
Wow. Oof.
So yeah, that's
Wow.
about, and then we top it all off, the icing on the cake. We ended up, there was a big cat up there with us that was stalking, and we actually saw it go across the road. And Gary Jr. found a footprint in the middle of the road.
Oof.
Big cat print. So
right.
Yeah, that's just a taste of what goes on in
what
my
an
research.
adventure. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So with that taste that Tex gave you, I'm going to put you on a spot just a little bit, Lady Ann. What type of vibe are you? What type of vibe, or what are you getting from what he just told you? What's your opinion on that entire situation he's got going on over there?
The fact that on the spirit box, the energy behind signaling that this person was alone feels predatory. It's definitely of the more negative. I mean, just from what I'm feeling and what I felt as you were going through the story. As for trying to see or feel what exactly it could be, I'm not sure. It's just like a shadow. It's just dark. But not like it was ever human. Something non-human.
Right.
Is yeah.
Would you like to see a picture of it?
Yes.
Yeah, Tex.
Oh my goodness.
Y'all give me a few minutes and I'll find it.
Okay. While we're doing that, let me, Ann, you had made mention too earlier about on your just your last story you told was about what type of message do you think what you experienced was sending you, and it had made mention of your children's names? I mean, I don't have kids, but that would have to just floor you, right? Or really put you in a fight or flight attitude, right? I mean, what was going through your mind when that happened?
Well, it was sheer. I mean, so I don't really have fight or flight. I have freeze. So for me, it was just like, you hold your breath and you're sitting there and you're just processing exactly what just happened. And it's also just this big, oh no moment. And you want to just cut it off as soon as possible. I mean, to me, I did not feel necessarily that the children were directly in harm's way. I think that it was more so this trickster trying to be like, I know these things. I have these connections. It's almost like it would be like a threat, but not threatening them, but threatening the adults kind of, situation. But I didn't feel that the children were directly in harm's way.
It almost sounds like kind of it was saying kind of like I know where you live.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so this picture was taken by somebody, and it's at the bottom of the cemetery. Okay, and it was texted to me because it's my favorite research area, and they said, "Hey, here's what your research area looks like right now," because it was grown up and everything, and that's all they were doing. I saw this in the picture and texted them back, and next thing I get is, "Oh shit!" Now, a little thing on this thing, we went back and took comparison photos, and we did measurements. We couldn't recreate the photo as best as we tried. The measurements that we took, he was 14 to 15 feet tall.
Okay.
Can you see him standing back there?
Yeah. Huh.
When we first saw the picture, when we first saw this, we thought it was a Bigfoot. We thought it was a big alpha male Bigfoot. Is what we thought we were dealing with.
Right.
And honestly, to me, it looks like Andre the Giant standing back there is what it looks like. But,
right.
But after doing some research on the land and everything, and talking to some people that are like yourself that are sensitive, and some other people, we from several different sources, we got that there was an entity that was protecting that area that was very large, very dark, and very ancient.
Yes.
And
wow.
So,
Gosh.
And we think that's what we may have caught in that image. So,
Right. No, I mean, it feels, looking at it again, when I was saying shadow, it was dark, just darkness. And that's definitely non-human, very old for sure. Wow. That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, that was one crazy night, but that's not the only crazy night that we've had up there. So.
Wow. Sounds like a place I'd like to visit.
Well, and you are welcome anytime you get down to this neck of the woods. I would be more than happy to take you out there.
Well, thank you.
But it's a place called, and you may have heard about it. It's Brown Springs, Oklahoma. It's a very notorious area. It's got a very bloody reputation. The not only the Indian fights and all this kind of stuff, because it's on Indian. It's okay. It's about a mile down the road from an Indian casino, so it's and it's the person that it's named after was Chickasaw. So I mean, there's a whole lot of ties in there. The thing about the cemetery, and I think the one we do believe it started out as an Indian burial mound. The guy that owned the land the first time, which was Chickasaw, his family's up there. Well, then some regular white folks took it over. Their people are up there. Well, then some ignoramus took it over, and in the middle of the cemetery built hog pens, pig pens.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just because it sits on top of the hill and there's drainage. It's good for drainage.
Wow.
You don't get more disrespectful than that, as far as I'm concerned.
No, exactly.
Now, to top everything off, the place is called Brown Springs for a reason. There's a freshwater spring that runs directly underneath the cemetery and bubbles up right there where we took the picture.
Wow. There's a lot. Oh my gosh. Just there's a lot going on there.
Yes, there is.
Wow.
You'd like to take a vacation down there, wouldn't you, Lady Ann? When you quit shot down from Ohio.
Yeah, I might. I mean,
and not only that, that area down there was a very popular body dump for the Fort Worth Dallas Mafia back in the day. So,
that's interesting.
we Tippa TVs, they were there, they were in the chat. They came down from Utah and filmed a 2-hour documentary with us in that area. And
Oh, wow.
2 weeks after the filming, there was a body found down at the river. In very mysterious under
Goodness.
circumstances. They never released any details on the death or anything that I know of.
Right.
I checked on it for a couple of months afterwards, and they no identification, no nothing. So
Right. Wow.
strange stuff happens down there. Not to mention what we had.
Wow.
We had Jessica Jones, which our was on our team. She was a remote viewer. She remote
Right.
viewed a very infamous killing down there of a couple
Oh.
that was supposedly Bigfoot, but what she found out, it was more a cult.
Oh, wow.
And then one time when we were down there, we were going up to the cemetery, and it was me and our executive producer Bob, and then Amy and Laney and her husband, and we were just pulled up to the bottom of the cemetery where we took that
Mhm.
picture. We just pulled up there, and that's where he was parked and everything else. We pulled up there. Next thing we know, we're surrounded by 5 cop cars,
Oh
mix of
my gosh.
tribal police, and sheriff's deputies. They were looking for a coven of witches that were there in the area sacrificing chickens.
Wow.
So
Oh my gosh.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
You know? And the officers also ended up telling me that 2 of their officers have had Bigfoot sightings in that area too. So that was a very productive
Wow.
weekend. So,
Sounds like it. That's incredible. I mean, that's you've got everything right there in that one
oh
spot.
yeah, oh yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's really crazy.
Yeah, that's a place that every time I talk to Tex, it's like it's definitely a place you want to visit. I mean, if you do what we do, and of course what
Mhm.
you're into, Lady Ann, it's definitely got to be on the bucket list at the least, you know. And you
People
would
are
Right.
probably
asking to see the picture again, so
yeah, there's the
I'll put
picture.
it up there for a little bit.
And I was going to ask you, it's not too often that we get somebody with your experiences and
Yeah.
your abilities, and I was going to ask you this question I always pondered.
Mhm.
Do you think you talk about energy, life forms. What's your thoughts on? Can we pick or choose? What's your thoughts on the afterlife? Does everybody have an
Oh,
afterlife? Can we
wow.
actually pick and choose where we go? And do you think that perhaps maybe you've had more than one life?
That's really fascinating. I actually just did an interview a couple days ago where we talked about the afterlife. It hasn't been aired yet or anything. So it's synchronistic that you would bring that up. Um, I mean, one of my very earliest memories, I was about a year old. My father had taken me to the babysitters and sat me in front of this big, beautiful window that overlooked the farm fields. They were flooded. And so it was, fall, winter time. And the sun was rising and I mean I can still see the way that the pinks and the oranges and everything. It was gorgeous. And I remember as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, wow, I came back. And ever since that moment, I mean, I knew that reincarnation was a thing. I've had reoccurring dreams of different lifetimes that I've had. A lot of people will try to say, oh, I was this famous person or this, whatever. But it's not necessarily how it all works. I was pretty mundane people, One time I was in Sweden and I had like 6 kids, just a mom. And in my other reoccurring dream, I was a soldier and I got shot in the back and died. And so I definitely believe in reincarnation, past lives. I've done some meditation where I've gone to it's called the Hall of Akashic Records, where you can view all your different lifetimes that you've had. Um,
Hmm.
and,
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
so, okay, so you can take people on guided meditations that will help them connect with, okay, what is their spirit animal? Who is their spirit guide, because your spirit guides, they're not always it's not always like a wolf or a badger or whatever. It can be
Right.
a person, so in one of those guided meditations you can go to what's called the Hall of Akashic Records, and in it, to me, it looked like this big beautiful library. There were viewing tables, there were books, on the shelves, and So I looked through those, and in those it shows you your past lives. And so yeah, so but as for afterlife, that one's really difficult because um
It
my
figures I'd
grandpa
ask you that question with 10 minutes to go, but leave it up to Rob. But
well, really quick, my grandpa passed away in 2011, and he when I was really little, and actually this is one of the stories that opens the book. I had went downstairs to him and I said, "Grandpa, when you die, will you come say goodbye to me?" Because his mom had done that for him. And at the time I was watching these documentaries on Houdini and spiritualism and everything, and he of course kind of looked shocked at me, and he's like, "Well, of course, if I can, I will." And in a dream he did. He really did.
mm,
And I got confirmation because he had told me something in the dream that I was not aware of, and I went to my aunt and I was like, "Is this true? Grandpa told me." And she confirmed it. And so I do believe that we kind of go through a life review after we pass away, because I also believe that when we incarnate here, the soul splits up into four pieces. So two stay behind as the higher selves, two incarnate here on earth, which are like the twin flames. So, and I also believe that when we incarnate here, that we kind of have contracts. We sign up to experience certain things because it helps our soul to raise its vibration. And I believe that the reason that we're here is to learn unconditional love. So, between I the in between of all of that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where we are, what we're doing, because as I, go into this subject and all these studies in the paranormal, I've realized that you've got, again, multi dimensions and all these kinds of studies. One thing that I never thought about until last year was the fact that not all ghosts that you see are ghosts. Sometimes it could be a time slip. That blew my mind when I found that out. So I'm the eternal student, and the more I learn, the more I know that I don't know.
you know, what kind of threw me, I mean, this is so deep. We are going to have a part two just on this. But when you mentioned sign a contract, now the first thing that came in my head, right, was a contract with the devil, right? And I
Oh,
know that's not your intent. That's not where you were going with that. But in other words,
right.
though, is that's with this other, I guess, reality where that's out there, that it's not like saying that, hey, my next life, I want to come back as the president. It's not something that
Mm.
TV or movie related, correct?
Right. So, and this can tend to be an unpopular opinion,
Right.
but there are some people that believe. The one way that you can view this is, let's say you had Jack the Ripper. Okay, so in his lifetime, he's killing these women, but in the next lifetime, one of those women and him come back, whereas he is her son and she is his mother. We go through a lot of hardships and different situations in our incarnations because we're trying to learn forgiveness of others and of the self, as well as
Mm.
unconditional love for others and ourselves.
That's well, honestly that's beautiful.
Yeah, it
I love
is.
the way you put that.
Oh,
I
thank
mean,
you.
and I was just sitting here thinking, but when you were talking about the ultimate goal is to learn unconditional love, I'm sitting here thinking, man, I know a lot of people that have a lot to learn.
It's hard. It can be hard, but that's why we're here.
And you said something earlier too about um having just a title, not a title, but just being branded as something, or having being said, yeah, I'm a witch, I'm a vampire, I'm this, I'm that. And really, until people get to know what a person's all about, what they're experiencing, and what their message is, people shouldn't judge until they learn and listen to somebody. Because there are
Exactly.
people that are going to have a predetermined viewpoint
Yes.
without even listening to somebody. And I'm sure there were
Hmm.
people, frankly, that, hey, we're having you on that thought that. And after listening to you today, it's nothing like that at
Mm,
all. It's nothing but goodness. You
mm,
know,
no.
you
Thank
exude
you.
goodness. You really do.
You're a
Thank
beautiful
you.
person and inside and out. And I mean that.
Yep.
That truly means more than you guys know. Seriously, thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, we are running out of time. And but we
I'm actually pissed off.
Rob books the shows, and I can't step
I'm
on his toes.
actually, yes, I'm
So
mad we
you
can't
better
go
get her
another
back
hour.
quick.
Yes, you have to rest up, Lady Ann,
Yes.
because I told her, for everybody there is mad now that we got to cut her loose. She is sick. Look, she went through this and she's ill, and she did a fabulous job.
Yep.
I'm
Thank
gonna have to
you.
book you for part two before, so while everything is still fresh. And really quickly, tell us where we can find you, where we can buy your book and everything else.
Yeah, so my book, Aperture in the Veil, is available on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook under Anne Selene, and you can get an author signed copy from me. And then with my podcast, The Caravan Library of Lore, as well as KPNL Radio, you can just type that in, whether it's Google, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and it will come up.
Lady Ann, thank you very much. And Texas, we're cutting it short. You guys know where to find us. Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Just hit the subscribe button and share this out. If you guys do anything today, go home, or you're probably home listening right now. Share this out. We will see you next week. And since we're not taking that 5-minute break, I'm just going to say text, find a button.